So good thing with basketball is that after a tough loss, a bad one, you don't have to wait too long, get your next game, and the next one here's not going to be an easy one, but at least we get to play pretty quick again. So, we it's not good to drop home games if you're trying to win the league championship. We dropped one. Now we put ourselves in a hole. We're gonna have to find our way to dig ourselves out of a hole. Starting with a much better showing against Kentucky. So Kentucky's offense is currently second in the country in efficiency. It's third in the country in points per game. Coach Pope's done a very good job kind of modernizing their offense. They've got three-point shooters spacing the floor. They've got bigs that can handle and pass and know how to make plays. They've also got 7 guys on their team that have scored 1,000 points in their career, so he's done a really good job in the portal. Robinson's obviously been big for him. I'm not sure if I pronounced it right, but Away has been kind of Mr. Consistency. I mean, he's just always in double figures, but Brea and Robinson are super explosive. Butler, we seen him before when he was at San Diego State in the Sweet 16 game 2 years ago. So they're good. I mean, they've got a lot of good players, and we're going to have to play well, and it's on the road. I mean, I'm sure Rupp's going to be ready for it. So I thought we had a really good practice yesterday. Thought today was solid. We didn't overdo it the day before a game, especially with a noon tip, which is 11 a.m. our time here in Alabama. So it's going to be an early tip. We're going to have to get to Kentucky, get locked in, get up, make sure our guys are ready to roll tomorrow morning.
Yeah, Coach, do you have an update on Deon Reed?
Yeah, you know what? He's recovering. He didn't go full 5-on-5 today, so he's questionable for tomorrow. We'll see if he's not able to go tomorrow. Hopefully next week. He's just I think from everything Clark's telling me, he's coming along. I just don't know how quickly, if it'll be tomorrow yet or not.
You had talked on Tuesday about sleepwalking a little bit. Do you feel like as a coach it can be good maybe to have a wake-up call early in SEC play, or would you kind of hope with a more veteran team that you don't need one?
I would hope with a more veteran team you don't need one, but sometimes you need a wake-up call. And if that gave us what we needed, then that's great. Sometimes you need a little adversity to get where you're trying to get. And I kind of referenced, we've got the luxury of watching maybe the greatest that's ever done it here in Coach Saban, and usually his championship teams lost one early, or whether it's September, October, and he got them pretty focused, and they didn't lose much after that. Now, that was the first loss in conference we had. We had some losses earlier, one of those is a road game at Purdue, and then the other one, Trelly went out, so maybe this is the first time we've lost with the group of guys that's going to be finishing the year out, minus Deon, obviously. But so we, we're just, I think it did give us a wake-up call. I think we maybe overlooked Ole Miss a little bit, which I don't know how is that possible. They were 3-0 and they've beaten good teams, and maybe just the history of some of these guys that have been here that we haven't lost to Ole Miss since I've been here till that. So I don't know if they thought that's why. I just told them, if you overlook anybody in this league, you're going to take an L. And, it looked on our offensive end like we weren't ready to play basketball. Like the turnovers, we didn't come ready to go Tuesday. And Ole Miss is much too good of a team with a lot of pride, and they came in and took advantage of the fact we weren't ready to go, and they did a great job.
You talked about Kentucky's offense, but the 3 games that they were held under 70 points, they lost. Have you noticed any themes in that? And then what is it going to take to hold them under? Is that possible?
Yeah, I mean, they haven't lost at home yet. So, they've, on some neutrals, road games, they've not scored it that well. I think, we have looked at all their games and tried to see who's done what well. I mean, they're doing a great job running like the 5-out with the bigs that can handle. So, you've got to do a good job. I mean, it's like, they've got good answers for defenses, like teams that have been able to, so, in some of their losses, they didn't look like they were quite in tune, and they, some teams maybe were a little more physical with them, got them out of rhythm a little bit on that. And sometimes they just miss shots, to be honest with you. And sometimes that's what happens in basketball when you take as many threes as they do and as we do. Sometimes you just miss shots, and so I don't think we can just plan on them missing shots. We're gonna have to, cause them to miss. We're gonna have to force them to turn the ball over. We're gonna have to bring some intensity to the game that I didn't think we had on Tuesday.
Yeah, looking back and at film and also just having conversations, have you gotten a better understanding why the offensive rebounding wasn't as good as it's been this season?
Yeah, it was an effort thing. I mean, when we go with the effort we need to, we get them. When we don't go, you don't get them. We chart like our crash rates, and they were some of the lowest of the season. So we just didn't go. Now, part of it was Ole Miss made a point to keep us off, and they did a good job. But they've also given up a fair amount of offensive rebounds in some other games before us, and for whatever reason we didn't go hard enough and get them. And then 21 turnovers, you don't have as many shots to get. Now, we had enough to where we should have gotten more than 3. I mean, I think the stats has for 4, but you can't count Jaren's when he missed a dunk, and they gave him an old board and a turnover after the missed dunk. So, I mean, we had 3 offensive boards one game after having 24. So I think it was an effort thing, and when you're not focused, not ready to play, it shows up in a lot of your effort categories.
You mentioned after the game on Tuesday some conversations that you wanted to have with fifth-year senior veterans. What were those conversations like this week, and what has the response been the last couple of days?
I think they owned it. They didn't have the team ready to go. They know that they can't do it again. They're great kids, They're all, with the exception of Youngblood, they're all a little more quiet, reserved, not necessarily in their play. I mean, you've seen Grant and Cliff make a bunch of tough plays. Sears is super physical, tough, but 3 of those guys are all a little bit more quiet and reserved, and we can't have. They need to speak up. They need to make sure their presence is felt. They need to make sure they themselves are ready to go, and then they got to make sure the team's ready to go as the leaders on this team. So, I think they know it. I think they owned it. I think we'll see a different team on Saturday.
You mentioned kind of some of the ball handling bigs that Kentucky's have. What have you noticed just from Andrew Carr, Amari Williams, just on film, and what do you have to do to kind of slow them down?
They're both high IQ guys that can make the right reads. They're both Carr's a capable shooter. It's not what he's looking to do. I think he's got 9 made threes on the year, but when he shoots it looks great, in my opinion. So I don't think we can just sit there and let them tee up threes on us, when they're letting them handle on the perimeter. But, those 3 guys know, for the most part, their job's to get these shooters open, and they're good passers. They know how to run in the kind of the delay action, as you call it, with the 5 out and them out handling, and they're good. They can pass. They can make plays, and if you don't have good defenders on them, they can for sure score. And Carr can get downhill off drives. They post him some. They kind of go high-low, 5-4. So Coach Pope's done a really good job. They run really good stuff. They've got good players where appropriate players. They got pretty good mix of everything, and those 2 guys are a big part of what they're doing.
I know you track this differently than we do, but on the turnovers, it seemed that a lot of them were unforced, a difference in a takeaway maybe, and I wonder, how do you practice to avoid turnovers?
Yeah, so some of them were definitely unforced against Ole Miss. Some of them, Ole Miss did a pretty good job kind of building out on some passing lanes, and we didn't, get to 2 feet in the lane and didn't have, we call it paint patience, and we weren't very focused. Some of them travels, kind of driving into crowds and not we've been trying to make a big point emphasis for about the past 3 or 4 weeks in practice. If you've got a casual turnover, we basically made it a paint patience, a casual turnover, driving single gaps where it's a crowd. If you got those type of turnovers, you just go over to the bike and you got some time with Henry over on the bike. And we'll get a sub in for you in practice. So we've tried to make that point. I thought we had them down. The A&M game, they were back up. They were like at 15. But, with the way A&M plays and the way we were able to get to the old boards, we were able to kind of survive it. And 15's not great, but it's also not 21. So I thought we had an enormous step backwards against Ole Miss. And I think it's just making a huge point of emphasis, teaching them to, you can't jump in the air with nowhere to go to make a pass like we did multiple times. You can't drive it into crowds. If you drive it into a crowd and Butler's in the crowd tomorrow, he's going to take the ball from you. So, and then we got to be smart with the ball. Now, Kentucky's not a high turnover rate defensive team. They're more solid, stay in front of you, force, tough twos. But Butler will take the ball from you, and if you're not sound with it, they will turn you over. So I would hope that tomorrow we can get the turnovers back down while still getting quality shots.
What's been the message in practice this week in terms of just shifting the focus from the loss to just going to a blue blood?
Yeah, yesterday we were off Wednesday. Thursday we got after it pretty good and tried to address some of the issues that we had in the game. But like Ole Miss switches everything 1 through 5, on ball, off ball. Kentucky doesn't. So we had a segment that was pretty much directly related to what we had with Ole Miss. So the next time we see anybody, or if somebody watches the film and decides that that's the way to guard us and does it even though they don't typically do it, all the time. And then, we also then had segments that strictly pertain to Kentucky yesterday, and then today's all Kentucky, and we had film on cleanup and both yesterday. It's all Kentucky, but the intensity and the level of focus, I thought yesterday in practice, if we'd have had that, it would have looked a lot different on Tuesday night. So I think that was the biggest deal. Is we didn't have an intensity and a focus that a game in the SEC demands, and that's on me to make sure that it happens. I told them, like, on my end, I'll make dang sure that, if I got anything to do with it, it's not going to happen again.
I could be wrong about this, but it seems to me like you're playing 3 bigs on the floor at the same time more than maybe you have since you've been here. Is that right? And if so, can you discuss that some?
Yeah, if you count Jaron as a big, he is 6'10", and he's starting to shoot it better now. He didn't shoot it great early. So, Grant's at the 4, Cliff's at the 5. So we start 3 guys 6'10" or bigger. Our guard situation, LeBaron, Sears, Holloway, Youngblood would be about the 4 guards that we have currently in the rotation. So, you could play 3 of them at a time. Some games, like A&M, for instance, we felt like we were much better off going bigger to deal with their rebounding, and it worked. We had 24 old boards. Against Ole Miss, I thought we could have played more guards together. Actually, we did. You look at how many minutes Sears, Youngblood, and Holloway had. They were all heavy minutes, and Phylon still played a decent amount of minutes. So we played three guards more against Ole Miss, but then we had 3 offensive rebounds. So, the offensive rebounding has been saving our offense with how poorly we've been shooting it. If those guards aren't shooting it better, right now LeBaron's 26% on the year from 3. So hopefully Youngblood gets back to shooting it like he has in his career, 40+%. I think Sears showing how good of a shooter he can be, particularly last year. In the 40s, Holloway's as good a shooter as both those guys. So, and I think LeBaron's been shooting it better in practice. I think he's realized what type of work he's got to put in to be a good shooter at this level. But, we haven't been able to get enough good threes, and, so the offensive rebounding has been a big part of our offense. So we're not getting as much off. Those guys don't go to the class like Jaron, Deon, Diabate, Grant, Cliff, Aiden Sherrill. So with offensive rebounding being as big a part of our offense as it's been, it made a little bit more sense to go a little bit bigger. And I think LeBaron and Youngblood are both more than capable offensive rebounders. So is Sears when he's in there with Holloway, and Holloway's getting back on defense, but they got to go. Like, if they would go more and we could get more offensive rebounds, it'd make more sense to play them. Right now, they're not going as much as we are asking them to or need them to. So that's gone into it a little bit too.